Hey guys, Dan Nichols here, and hey, welcome to the website. I got Vilnis on, and Vilnis, I'm not going to try to say your last name. R-U-S, like how, Ruskins, what?
Rusins in
All right,
English.
all right, in English. And Vilnis speaks. How many languages do you speak, Vilnis?
Just three.
Just three. Great. All right, for us Americans to speak one, that feels good. Hey, so I asked Vilnis to the interview. Vilnis is residing in Latvia. That's where he's from, and Riga, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And Vilnis has done martial arts his whole life. And Vilnis, I know Vilnis because Vilnis and I and George trained in Royal Oak in George's apartment. George has never had a dojo. He's had his garage and some stuff like that. But Vilnis and I trained together there, and that's where I met Vilnis. And Vilnis is an awesome dude, and he's also a really good athlete, or at least he was, right? I don't know if he wants to make claim to that. Vilnis, you also played with Sambo and some other stuff too back in the day, didn't you? Weren't you like
Yeah, I started. Yeah, I started with the Greco-Roman and then Sambo wrestling.
yeah.
That was my starting background, maybe in fifth grade or something like that.
Yeah, I always remember I wanted to stand up when I was sparring around with Vilnius because I didn't want to take it to the ground because it would not have been good for me. So I said to Vilnius when I came up with this idea of punching harder than that George hits harder than a beep. I'm going to beat myself because he's got kids in the background there. And I said, Vilnius, I just want to share a little bit about your experience in getting hit by George back in the day. And Vilnius said, sure, man, I'm game. So Vilnius, share with me like that security. Vilnius worked security when he moved to the U.S. for a while as a bouncer at a nightclub, right?
Yeah, yeah, in downtown Detroit, in the hottest clubs at the time. And I quickly understand that all my previous training and experience didn't really work well because the guys were huge and many and crowd fighting, and it was different. And that's how another guy, Matt Fitzsimon, he brought me to George for training. And then George trained me up, especially my confidence. And he did some things he taught us that it's now been maybe I don't know how many 15 years since I left,
Yeah,
and
probably at least.
still in
Yeah, at least.
all this time training, nobody else has taught these things that he did back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
So he,
Sistema, you train Sistema with George,
yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah,
still train Sistema now a couple days a
yeah,
week.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, once or twice a week,
Yeah.
basically for my health. But I remember, yeah, and I remember these sessions when George was happy when somebody came. Especially, he liked the big guys. Bigger, the better.
Yeah, he did. He did. You're
If we brought some big guys over to him to see if they can punch, or George liked to test them. And I remember this as yesterday. First, George would ask them, "Now you punch me. Here is my solar plexus. You punch me there as hard as you can." And then usually he would go, "Okay, punch again, punch again, punch again, harder, harder, harder." And I could see in these guys' eyes that this is all they can. They cannot punch any harder. And then George would say, "Okay, now it's my turn."
Oh
And then I
yeah.
would see the guys would get so scared. You
Yeah.
could see in their eyes they would get so scared because they knew what's gonna happen. It's like they could not imagine, but they knew it.
That's
Find them
something.
hardest, and then George would just not even hit them hard, just like I don't know, maybe medium, and look to me like he would hit them maybe not as hard as they would hit us, but the guys would get destroyed. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
rarely ever anyone ever came back again because they couldn't deal with their egos. Because I remember there was once a guy, he was some powerlifting champion in America at least, and I brought my friend. He was powerlifting champion in Michigan, and it doesn't matter to George. He just liked it. The bigger the guys, but the better.
yeah, that's funny that you said that George would take the strikes too. There's a video online,
Yeah,
and
he
I'm
would
gonna link.
start with that. Yeah, he
Yeah,
would start with that. And remember, George has always taught that first you have to learn how to take the strike. If you cannot take hard punch, you're not going to be able to hit it back. So
yeah,
that was the one of the first things.
yeah. He's got a video online, Vilnius. I'm gonna share it on this page, but
Yeah,
where the guy was actually George said, "Punch me in the throat," and the guy said, "What?" Oh, no, excuse me. It was a punch me. It was punch me in the upper chest, and the guy ended up
yeah,
hitting him basically like in the lowest part of the throat here. And the dude,
Yeah.
the guy's been a 30+ year MMA guy. He's traveled the world and trained with all these people. In fact, he's going to be on this page too, I hope. And
Okay.
yeah, and I watched it. It's on YouTube, and you see him just haul off and nail George, and George is like and laughs, and it's like, it's like, next, just like you just explained, and that's the
Yeah,
thing. It's like
exactly.
not only can he hit harder than a beep, but he can take it.
Yeah.
And that
He could.
always blew my mind. And it's weird because people are like, really, you want me to hit you as hard as I can? And George would be like, yeah. It's really hard mentally for people to do it. I don't know
Yeah,
if
and
you ever.
then he would go harder, harder. Can you hit harder, harder, harder?
Yeah,
And he would
yeah,
drain you all out. You are hitting your all the best and
yeah,
nothing.
yeah. Now I'm
And
gonna
then
ask you what.
yeah.
I'm gonna ask you one more question here. Have you ever been? I mean, I know it's been a while. Have you ever been hit that hard by anybody?
Well, Mikhail Rapko, the guy who invented Systema.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mikhail. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He invented Sistema. I
Yeah.
didn't know he invented it. I thought that's interesting. Okay, yeah. So you got hit by Mikhail. I did too, but he was easy
Did
on me.
I did 2 seminars, yeah, and he hits hard, very hard. He, of course, he tries to hit to everyone as much as they can take, but sometimes you are not sure
Yeah,
if you could take it or you could take it less. But so did George.
yeah, yeah.
It's
I used.
important. Mikhail's son told me once, it's very important that you don't take harder punch than you are ready to take. It's like he said, like weightlifting. You do not lift 200 pounds if you can only lift 100, because
Right.
that would break you. So you have to take your time developing that power. Same goes for punching as
Yeah,
receiving. So you would have to take your time and develop slowly,
yeah.
because you can go over yourself. It's not the things that you can. It's not something that you can do more than you can actually.
Right, right. Yeah,
Like
you know.
like everything, you need time and practice. And
Right.
George got a lot of practice. There was a times that I think he was teaching every day for 2 classes a day. I was coming 4 or 5 times a week just for lunch for 1 hour.
Hmm.
I was working. There was time. I know Skip was coming. Then he got the regular classes, so he was sometimes non-stop teaching, and then in the time between, he was watching all the videos, YouTube videos, and learning. So it was like constant practice. So there's no surprise. He did put a lot of time in it. A
Yeah.
lot of time.
Yeah, things take time. They don't happen overnight. You don't. Now, on
Yeah.
that note, I'm also going to be interviewing a guy named JP, and JP was a guy that he's a school teacher, and he's actually my cousin. And JP, I brought him to class, but he's 6'7", Vilnis. Okay, he's a
Right.
tall guy, and his whole family are just giant people. And he'd never done a day of martial arts in his life. He rode on what they call crew, like basically it's rowing, a rowing team in college. Like that's that, and he played baseball, basketball, football, that kind of stuff, but never martial arts. And I
Yeah.
brought him over to George's, and because he'd always heard of the stories growing up about George. I would tell him stories about George. And he's my little cousin, my younger cousin, my big younger cousin. And he came over, and within an hour, he could hit harder than most people that I'd met that had been in martial arts for decades, though. So,
Wow.
but it was a whip strike, right? So we have different types of strikes, right? And that whip strike, when you're 6'7" tall, and this is your whip,
It's a long whip. Yeah.
it's a long whip. And man, when he would hit that focus mitt, you almost wanted to hurl. You wanted to almost throw up and that was only after an hour of showing him,
Hmm.
but again, that's a whip strike. So there's different types of strikes, and George will talk about those for sure in the course. But anyway, hey man, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. I just wanted to
I think it's gonna be interesting course. It's gonna
yeah,
be interesting.
yeah, cool. I'm going to end the broadcast,
George,
but
George has a lot to teach and this, so
yeah.
it'll be interesting.